IT has become more complex and dynamic than ever, generating enormous amounts of data from on-premises, cloud, and hybrid environments. Operations teams are overwhelmed, and it's impacting their ability to ensure service performance and availability. Moving from reactive to proactive is no longer a nice-to-have. It's a must-have, and AIOps is a critical requirement. Discovery of infrastructure, relationships, applications, and services across cloud platforms is at the foundation of IT operations and service management. Once you know what you have, AIOps solutions can help you manage it. Cut through the noise and prevent service degradation with AIOps. Its artificial intelligence, machine learning, and advanced analytics capabilities can analyze extremely large datasets, detect anomalies, and automate event correlation. Quickly identify the root cause of problems with AI-enhanced service-centric probable cause analysis, and use service-centric monitoring to generate heat maps and tile views that show the current state of a business service. AIOps and its predictive capabilities can keep pace with changing demands, including intelligent, continuous optimization of Kubernetes, microservices, pods, and container-based applications. It can also optimize service assurance by proactively planning and managing IT resources. And it does all of this while keeping cloud costs to a minimum. Empower operations teams to stay ahead of data and performance requirements with the latest innovations in AIOps from BMC. To learn more, visit us here.
A very good afternoon to all of you, and thanks for joining on time. And very happy to really have all of you along with our esteemed panelists out here today. We have one more panelist who is going to join us soon. And as we all know that in this new era, people are running back to back from one virtual meeting to another, unlike the era preceding this. So we'll have our other panelists also join in soon. This is the heading of the topic, I guess, has got pretty boring by now, navigating the digital transformation. I think next to the phrase called "you are on mute," digital transformation is possibly the next most used phrase today in our industry, at least. So thanks again for joining over here, in spite of seeing digital transformation as the topic name for this afternoon. So we all in this community, users, solution providers and all, I think we all set sail a few years back from the shores to navigate onto our next destination through the ocean called digital transformation. But I guess what happened in between is there's a cyclonic storm, or it can't be even called cyclonic. It's something unprecedented, something none on the ship ever envisaged. That storm suddenly hit us when we are in the mid-sea. And the storm is called COVID-19 storm. And we really didn't know how to navigate because none of us have experienced this unique experience. And that actually accelerated a lot for many, decelerated a lot for many, completely changed the direction for quite a few of us in terms of where they were heading and where they now intend to head. So while it is often said that digital transformation got accelerated due to COVID, I would rather put it, digital transformation got transformed due to COVID possibly. And there's two transformations which are happening: transformation of physical to digital, and transformation of digital transformation, that the journey we embarked on. And to take us through some of the experiences today, let me introduce our esteemed panel we have with us today. Mr. Vijay Devnath. Mr. Vijay Devnath is here with us, who is the General Manager, Infrastructure and Security of CRIS. Now, this, as I was thinking, should I even really spell out what CRIS stands for? This is one of those unique abbreviations where we know the abbreviation more than the full form. Center for Railway Information System, which many of us may not know, but I think there's hardly anyone in this room whom CRIS hasn't touched so far. So Mr. Devnath is managing both the infrastructure and security, and along with the ICT platforms. He looks after consolidation and capacity optimization of Chris, including the virtualization, public and private cloud, information security, ICT outsourcing, and procurement with fine-grained SLAs. Of course, prior to that, he has actually traversed a lot of areas, including maintenance technology, HR, materials. And I think in an era of current digital transformation, where IT is more relevant to business than ever, his experiences will come really useful for us. And considering the fact that Chris manages information technology that powers the largest rail network globally that we have. I think that's experience we are all keen to understand. Moving on from rail to road. While Chris started his journey with freight from the railway perspective, we will soon be joined with someone who comes from the road. And Express Roadways, the head of IT infrastructure and system management of Express Roadways, Mr. Nishant, is going to join us soon. And what excites me about Express Roadways, while they're one of the largest logistic and supply chain company in India, over the years, they've really focused on one thing. They've tried combining the scientific methodologies around logistics and warehousing with human intuition to understand logistics and distribution requirements. And that's what makes Actist, I found very interesting in the approach they are taking. It so nicely gels with machine learning and artificial intelligence that we talk about the human intuition part, how they have been successfully trying to align some of their methodologies to the human intuition part. While we have these two esteemed panelists from people who are consuming IT, I thought it would be wonderful to have somebody who is actually helping them consume this IT, somebody who helps customers deploy IT. So we have with us Mandar Deo, also as one of our three panelists today. He's a senior management professional responsible for strategic and tactical focus on service delivery operations of organizations. With more than 2.5 decades of experience in delivering innovative solutions that fully support corporate growth objectives. He brings with him a unique combination of telecommunication information system, healthcare, e-business, retail, and quality assurance experience within technology-driven industries. So that's our esteemed panel today. So moving on to our topic. So amidst this, so as we are sailing deep in the sea and this whatever hurricane or cyclone, whatever has struck us, there are many parameters of the ship that we need to really maneuver to make the ship afloat, to make this ship sail, and figure out what is the direction now that we have to take so that we can manage the cyclone or hurricane much better. And out of many aspects of technology, one of the key aspects is my technology running? Is my technology available? Is my technology very important, going to fail soon? That will completely make me redundant amidst this vast ocean. And that's what the topic we chose for today, which is how in this, not only this cyclone called COVID, but around this digital transformation, we are moving with respect to how we used to monitor our IT operations earlier, the traditional way, into the new era of AI ML driven IT operations. Now you look at IT operations, the way it has evolved. It was at a very basic level when IT went beyond good to have to a support kind of a function. Our questions were, and we all, I think most of us have seen those eras maybe 2 decades back, is my IT up? It focused purely on availability and reactive monitoring. It talked about event correlation. It talked about event correlation, correction, and analysis. The next step in this evolution journey was, is it working? Once it is up, the next level of queries was, is it working? And it focused predominantly on service monitoring. So metrics collection and performance monitoring were the key focus in those era. From that, it moved a step ahead in terms of diagnostics. What is the cause of the problem? That was what the focus was. But look at it. These are all reactive ones that we were used to in the past. It was all about transaction monitoring. It was about call tracking, and it was about root cause analysis. And slowly we came possibly to this decade when IT was seen as something which can help business grow. And that's where I think the business insights parts of IT started becoming very, very popular, starting from traditional ETL tools into moving into data warehousing, and business intelligence was started really gaining the ground. But today we are in an era which is where we talk about self-driving ITOM or IT operations management. It needs to be self-driving. Today, we really don't want to spend a lot of time monitoring my IT just to figure out if something is going to fail. It should be auto-driven or self-driven via things like AIOps, artificial intelligence in IT operations, triage, and auto remediation. Things like these are expectations not only of IT people, but even businesses that IT supports. So no wonder actually when Gartner talks about this in its strategic roadmap, I think there are a few things that Gartner really highlights what will be your IT monitoring strategy moving ahead. And Gartner speaks about a few things like pragmatic observability, which is very, very important. Detecting relationships and dependencies impacting digital business applications and customer experience. And this dependency mapping and the relationship mapping is extremely important to ensure that the right problem is identified very, very early instead of losing a lot of time, which directly translates into severe business crisis today in the era of this digital transformation. And of course, analyzing telemetry from the full stack and shared and in context perspective. So this is what Gartner talks about, what should be actually the direction that organizations should take moving ahead. Now, to start off with, I think one of the key things is observability of IT operations. And it is very important that we should be observing how things are in our organization. And for that, I think one key aspect that we need to understand is how do we really know what is there in my IT landscape? And this leads me to go to Mr. Devnath, because it's very, very intriguing. Indian Railways, we can all gauge the extent to which it is spread, and the extent to which information systems are also spread in managing every minute across the country. So I would say my point to Mr. Devnath is how we are really over the years help managing to discover what is there in your IT landscape. We'll come to monitoring much later, but even discovering seems to be such a huge challenge for Chris in such a vast network. Mr. Devnath, if you just want to share with us your thoughts. Mr. Devnath, you are on mute. As I said, the most often.
Actually, we were following orders that we have to be visible, but not disturbing by speaking. So good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for this opportunity to express some of the thoughts. As Mr. Banerjee has already said that this is a oft repeated topic and much beaten up too. The infrastructure management is not a new post-pandemic. There are so many other things which have come about post the work from home era. But the core infrastructure, its visibility and discovery as well, as you asked, discovery of infrastructure and their visibility has always been, I will say, a problem area for railways. Because if you take some of the statistics in railways, there are approximately 400 locomotives they are condemned. I mean, they die, and 400 new locomotives come into the system. Sometimes it is 600, sometimes it may be 300 per year. Then there are approximately 60 to 70,000 wagons coming in, and then equal number going out of the system as well. These are inanimate objects. Then there are approximately 60,000 employees retiring every year and 60,000 new employees coming in. Now, this kind of asset ingress and going out itself is a big issue to manage. And most of these assets, though they are not IT assets, but they have a presence in the IT system. Every wagon is supposed to be having a loading value and all that. It has some attributes. It is supposed to be managed in the master data, and similarly the other assets. Now, coming to the IT assets, then though the railway was a pioneer in bringing IT into the India's IT landscape, but over the years we have remained more or less a traditional kind of railway business. IT has always been a supporting function. So in the same way, the focus on IT has been there on mostly to provide more and more ease of travel or doing business with railways, not per se in the internal maintenance infrastructure of the railways. So as usual, you come to know of PRS, the ticketing system, the FOIS, the freight operation system, etc., etc. But there is a vast size and number of operational infrastructure in railways as well. As you know that today SCADA systems are running the traction distribution system. In fact, it is 100% on SCADA. And then there are signaling systems which are route relay interlocking, the solid state interlocking at every station. Large stations have RRI, CCI, and those kind of centralized control, computerized control. Some places they are automated train controls as well. In Mumbai suburban, they have huge systems which are driving these signals automatically. As the track becomes vacant, the next train is allowed without the intervention of the human, that is the station master and all that. Now, all this needs to be now integrated into the IT system, because the management now wants all the MIS and analytics to be done on the IT systems. Those days of doing it on Excel sheets are now over. In doing that, of course, we have done a lot of discrete IT all over the places. We have some 70 locations for control office automation. That means 70 small data centers also. And then we have some 6 major data centers in 5 of the major metropolis and the headquarters as well. But as you might have guessed, that being a support function, our focus on upgrading the IT in line with the market or the changes going on in the industry has not been so dynamic. We are slow to change. Systems change only after 8 to 10 years or so, and that has been a problem for the OEMs, because they cannot maintain the compatibility between a 8-year-old system and a system which is being implemented now, be it the system, servers, cloud, or the application technologies, operating systems which we are using. So it has been a challenge, and I think we put a lot of pressure on people like BMC and the other service manager systems in making these visibility and monitoring to work seamlessly. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. And we understand that it is not possible to marry 8-year-old system with a modern technology, cloud-based system. So it is always a work in progress, and I hope with time to come, we will have these IoT systems being installed on most of our high value assets, and they will be giving us real-time updates, and then that will make our discovery and visibility both better. I will not say it will be 100% ever due to the constant change, but it will become better and better.
Thanks, Mr. Devnath. I think some of the perspective or the scale of challenges you highlighted is difficult for many to conceive, because the nature scale is so different for you. And as an addition to some of the challenges that you said, I was just thinking you would have a serious challenge of even shadow IT coming in a landscape, considering and from my past experiences with railways also I've seen. And how do you really manage, bring it into your fold and manage it, or do you do away with it over a period of time? How do you handle this shadow IT issue?
Yeah, again, there are two aspects of it. If the shadow IT is being managed by a user group, that means if it is a department which is doing it for its own work, then we do not try to interfere in that. They have to manage it on their own, and only if they are connecting it with us, so we provide the APIs or the web services, etc., and we try to exchange data with those systems. There are so many systems, like systems which are track machine management system, which is managing the track machines, which are a system in themselves. They are also computer controlled systems which do the track maintenance, etc. Similarly, for the IT of these traction control systems, SCADA, or the RRIs, SSIs, these are systems which are supplied and supported by the global OEMs, and they have their own way of or own operating system or the applications to manage them. With them, we have a data exchange relationship. We do not try to bring them into our fold, as you say, because it will become too difficult to manage. And they are specialized systems. So it will be very difficult for us to get manpower for them and then manage it also. We are, all said and done, we are a software development and maintenance company of railways. So we do our development on our own most of the time, and take only the database, the operating system from the well-known OEMs. For other systems, these are so-called shadow ITs. Sometimes they are very specific, so we don't try to integrate them as a whole, only on the edges. That means the web services and APIs, etc. And if they are standard applications, like the EDP centers, which used to manage the accounts and all those things earlier, we have developed an alternative system there, and slowly we have taken over all their data and discarded those client server systems, and we have taken over decentralized system ourselves. So that is a sort of a replacement, time-based replacement of the system. It is not taking over of shadow IT. And many
So,
places, as you are rightly guessing, that many places the shadow IT is still working, and they will continue to work, because in such a large system, it is very difficult to control everybody's hand, because somebody is doing it for their immediate needs, which a central body and a central system will take a long time to develop. So sometimes we allow it to develop, and it gives us a good idea how to implement it in other places. Suppose somebody is a pioneer in developing a GPS based train location system. Then we have taken it over, and then we have implemented a better system with the help of BEL and all that for the overall railways. That way. It was developed in South Central Railway initially as a shadow IT system.
yeah, okay, Bilashpur, yeah. Correct. I'm saying Bilashpur, yeah.
Yeah, Bilaspur.
South
No,
of it.
Bilaspur was
Okay.
Bilaspur was a different system.
Okay.
Bilaspur, that was the system which is now being implemented like an e-office.
Okay.
I am talking about the real-time train location system, which is we are now implementing as RTIS, and it is basically now being fitted into the locomotive and all that. So it's a much larger system, but initially it was tried on some system in Southern Railway, EMU stock. They tried with putting GPS tracker in there. So some other railways also tried it, and then Railway Board decided that it is now a time to make it a central system. Then for last 2 years, it has been given to Chris. Now Chris is implementing a all India system of that sort.
Okay.
Similarly, for HR systems, so many railways, including South Central and even Northern Railway, they did some human resource systems locally. But now, when board has decided to roll out the HRMS on the all India basis, those initiatives have been subsumed into the central system.
Okay, thanks a lot, Mr. Vednath. It's a great clap for providing such a clarity. So from rail, we need to move to road. But before moving to Nishant, I thought since we are all out there in the road and rail, it's important to have ourselves insured. And that's why we thought of having Mr. Puneet Kohli joining us today from Universal Sompo General Insurance. It's always advisable to have yourself insured as you are out there in the rail and road. So Ms. Puneet actually is an IT leader who brings over 25 years of global experiences, having extensive knowledge on developing and implementing strategic plans and end user services by addressing company needs and promotion of growth. She has lived and worked in different parts of the world and leading companies like Motorola, Reliance, Dunstan, Carrier, Aircon, UCAN, and Investments, Bharti Airtel, and so on. So we welcome her as well. And in the meantime, we'll move on to Nishant. So Nishant, obviously, there are two key areas, I think, that is your focus areas, which one is, of course, warehousing, and the other is logistics, that your company really specializes on. Maybe let's take logistics, which is a very time-sensitive operation. Do you see a transformation of the same, where it is depending more on IT in recent years, the way your logistic operations are evolving? Are there some processes which you can share which are getting automated now, which weren't earlier because of the demands of time and demands of your customers?
Yeah, hey, good afternoon, Prateek. Maybe you're getting my voice?
Yeah, we can.
Yes, Prateek. Actually, you can say that it's a very general question. Okay, if you see past 10 years in logistics warehousing industry. Okay, first of all, I'll give you some idea about our logistic vertical. Okay, in our country, if I'm not wrong, okay, it's the most backward vertical, or you can say the backward industry in our country, because every industry, you can say that, take the example of banking, you can take the example of ठीक है ना, वो purchasing, procurement, everything goes so much updated, but logistics is still far behind as compared to other verticals. Okay, but still, because I'm in this industry for past 10 years, okay, and I have seen lot of changes. Like even you can say that for past 5 and 6 years, government is supporting very much. Like if you take the example, there is a document in our transport industries, LR, okay, lorry receipt, okay. It's a very basic document. Without LR, you can't transport any goods from one place to another document, okay. First, before you can say that before 4 or 5 years, okay, we can't send any document, any parcel or any, you can say that any consignment from one place to another without physical building, physical LR document, okay. But now government is supporting ELR document also, okay. It's a very huge change, you can say that, okay. But you can say that to maintain ELRs in the system, it's a very huge challenge, because we have millions of consignments running in the Indian roads, okay, on day-to-day basis. So we need very huge infrastructure, okay, to maintain ELRs, okay, and maintaining IT sustainability also, because if your system downs for 5-10 minutes, na, you can say that how many consignments got stuck due to the non-availability of ELRs, and due to non-availability of ELRs, you can't generate any invoice, you can't generate e-way bill, okay, you can't dispatch that vehicle, okay. So you can take the example of Suez Canal also, okay. Like one ship is stuck in Suez Canal, na, whole global
Global
market.
trade comes to a halt. Yeah.
Yes, yes, yes. And that's the same thing now happening in the logistic industries also. Everything relies on IT sustainability. So you can say that for past 5-6 years, there's a very huge change in this industry also. Okay, we are very fastly moving to the completely relying on IT field. Okay.
So
Now
Nishant,
comes
here
to the-
I'll just maybe on this specific point that you said, how you're really changing how you monitor your IT, because right now slowly we're moving into a state where we can't, customers don't have patience even to wait, and if your IT fails, everything fails. So how you are changing the way you are managing or monitoring your IT?
That's a very basic thing, Pratik. Okay, if you take example of other industries also, we are not 1% of banking transactions. Okay, banking systems are handling billions of transactions on day-to-day basis. Okay, so we are not handling billions of transactions because our transactions are very huge. Okay, so but still we are handling millions of transactions on Indian roads. Okay, so like banking systems, we are also managing so much of backup systems. Okay, in us we have multiple servers, we have multiple, you can say that servers, multiple backup internet connectivity and all. Okay, so managing all these things. Okay, now you can say the government is supporting very much e-way bill. I don't see any major outage in e-way bill site till date, okay, for past 2-3 years. Okay. So that's a very big thing that government is also supporting these kind of things, okay, because without e-way bill, okay, we can't dispatch any vehicle. Okay. So you can say that we also managing that kind of infrastructure in our company. Okay, previously transport or logistic industry is not supporting that kind of IT infrastructure in their premises. Okay, they believe in all physical work, maintain registers, maintain Excels, okay, in your laptop. It's good for us. Okay, they don't ready to, you can say that they don't ready to invest in that kind of infrastructure, but now they are getting the exact profit by implementing IT in their company. Okay, so they are, you can say that they are observing all these kind of changes, that how implementing this kind of IT in their company is beneficial to them. Because previously you can't say that the transporters or logistics companies are that kind of use, but now you can take example of multiple players like Darsal, TCI. They are thousands of crores of companies. Okay, they are handling so much of IT. They can't, their management team can't rely on any physical work now. So they have, if I'll give you a very simple example in our logistic industry, and you can't believe that this thing is happening. Okay, if I am moving one truck from Delhi to Mumbai, so if I'll tell you, Pratik, okay, that we have to get the diesel for that truck. So maybe your answer is get diesel from Delhi only, get that diesel from Delhi, fill the complete tank of the truck, and get the dispatch, okay, so that material can be delivered timely. But no, in after implementing IT, we are not suggesting to take all diesel from Delhi. Why you are taking all diesel from Delhi? Okay, we have algorithms, we have route algorithms. Okay, all cities coming in that route don't have same price of diesel. Okay, so take that amount of diesel from Delhi so that you can reach that city which have lower price of diesel. Okay? So we are generating that kind of algorithms for our company. Okay, we are giving so much of benefit to our company by implementing these things. And when you are doing data analysis, I'm also doing data analysis. When you have multiple records, when you have past records of 6 months, of 1 year, so 2 years, then you can see that how IT can help you. Okay, when you have implemented system in your company, it can give you a very huge boost. Okay, after COVID also, you can see that every client now declining their, you can say that their margins for every company, because everyone is in stress now. Okay, if global partners are in stress, then everyone can be stressed. No? So now companies are doing these kind of things, that how to manage all admin expenses, everything.
How to optimize, actually, basically how
Yes,
to
yes,
optimize and let information technology be the tool to optimize. And I think that is a very relevant point, which brings us back how IT, you actually pointed out how IT is becoming a profit center now, which was earlier looked upon as purely a cost center and a good to have thing in organization.
yes,
I'll
yes,
quickly
exactly.
move on to your other business operation, which is perceived to be extremely labor centric. And maybe quickly, since we don't have much time, quickly, if you can say, is there a lot of automation that you're looking at on your warehousing part of practice?
You are saying me to state warehousing quickly, but it's not possible, but still I'll try my best. Okay, actually, if anyone have any idea about warehousing, it's a very complicated job. Okay, to manage all the material of the client and get dispatched to end users. Okay, it's a very complicated. Okay, to save the damages and all, but still by implementing automation, okay, we are doing very big, you can say very drastic changes in this vertical also. Like Mandar sir is with me. He's our, you can say that he's our partner for WMS also.
Okay.
So he can state later in this call also, okay, that how we are taking orders from the client directly in our system. So it's saving our lot of time. Okay, how we are managing these kind of orders through IT integration only. Okay, so you can say that for my experience, okay, previously users are giving around 15 to 20 minutes for an order. Now they are giving only 2 minutes for an order. So this kind of time management, if you are multiplying it with the transactions, amount of transactions, it will give huge boost to your industry. Okay. Absolutely. Now, if I'm coming to part of hardware part, there are so many things coming up in warehousing industry. Everyone can learn about that, like automatic stacker coming in, that we can pick material through automatic robotic machines also. We have automatic mops. We have so many things, like drones are now introducing in warehousing industries also. So IT is playing very important role in warehousing. So it's a very interesting topic. We'll definitely discuss.
It's an exhaustive topic, and since you pointed out to Mandar, so obviously I need to go to Mandar now. And as you rightly said, he has the other view. While you are consuming technology and the services, how does he see this whole transformation coming in from customers, owning the delivery, ensuring success of the projects? From his perspective, how is seeing the shift in the last 25 years that he has been seeing all this with the recent, as I said at the onset, digital transformation.
Yeah. So good afternoon, everybody. I think I have been noticing it for a quite longer time now. I've put in 25 years. So I know I have seen traditional systems earlier to begin with legacy systems and how they were being functional in those days. And now with the advent of latest agile methodologies with the DevOps kind of stuff, around 2008 scenario, when I think they first started DevOps to be taught from Belgium with the two people who started. I think one was Patrick and the other one was Andrew. So DevOps began, and what people thought then was possibly DevOps is a replacement, and definitely is a replacement, but to the traditional way of software development life cycle, to being more inclusive with customers, more inclusive with the rapid changes that are taking place, even in the requirements, to study from the requirements and keep changing requirements, evolving, and then delivering with the agile methodologies. So basically, they looked at delivery as such. So what DevOps is development plus operations is DevOps, and the three pillars in DevOps specifically are the process, technology, and even the human people participating, or I would say teams collaborating with each other. So with DevOps coming in, there were several challenges, and then let me put through, I want to categorize these challenges. There were several challenges in each front: development, source code engineering, test engineering, deployments, releases, rollback, process perspective, from tools and technology perspective, from the collaboration perspective, and basically from these perspectives, we can broadly classify these challenges. What were the solutions for this? These solutions was, one was automation, bring in automation wherever it is possible. The second one was to identify the risks, and if we can proactively figure out the risk and then provide the solutions or mitigate the occurrences, mitigate it before the occurrence itself, then it would have been great. So these were all predictive solutions, algorithms that were coming into place. And then the third one was basically bringing in transparency with collaboration of all the stakeholders which are involved in the operations, business operations as such. So this was what DevOps constituted. These were the three pillars in DevOps. Now slowly moving, people started looking at artificial intelligence and machine learning to support this, so that human interaction part was dealt with, sorts of automation being employed wherever human interference was there. So varied businesses, probably from healthcare, probably from retails, probably from transport industry as such. There are various places where it could be employed as such. There are a few use cases out of my experience I have seen. I'm talking about a largest retailer in UK having around 3,000 stores. Every day morning, 6:30, the stores open, and then the approach, innovative approach that company had taken was specifically around saying know your lanes, that the knowing your POS systems are ready so that your billing is not interrupted, invoicing is not interrupted when the store opens. And then the task of the operations team was basically to see that before the store opens, all the systems are health checked and then are operational. So how do they do this? This was an innovative idea. So how did they do this? they ran multiple scripts remotely, checked all the systems. Wherever it was possible with respect to hardware, they could do it. With respect to software also, they could do it. And then what did this do basically was, it was making the stores operational over a longer period of time. And slowly what happened was they started collecting data. Seeing that which all systems failed on which days. So there was a huge database. Then they employed machine learning into this and artificial intelligence. So they made the system very much intelligent. And then they studied seeing how, at what specific intervals these systems were going down, and made sure they put a predictive or a proactive solution with a predictive analysis scheduler, saying that, okay, this would schedule a planned maintenance, so that the systems didn't go down and then they were operational 24/7. So this was one case study which I remember of. And then it has yielded a great profit for the organization. Similarly, if you look at solutions, let us say Amazon or Flipkart, if you log into their page, what happens specifically? A user is logged in, you keep buying through these sites and they keep collecting data from you. Your buying pattern is studied, and suddenly you start to see recommendations on your page saying XYZ article was brought. So there would be recommendations saying that if you have bought these articles, let us say if you have bought a TV, then they would offer you something recommendation like a speaker system or a home theater. So this is also one form of studying the data of end user, and then using the artificial intelligence or machine learning system becoming intelligent and proposing new recommendations for the buyer based on his buying pattern. So this is one case. The other case, if you see, traditionally our enterprises are having huge infrastructure. I think our friend and colleague speaker from the IRS, Mr. Devnath, spoke about this. So if you look at this, let us say traditionally we had huge enterprises. There were physical servers. With the advent of all virtualization and cloud systems being employed, now it became easy. If you have to make sure that your system needs excess memory or excess storage space, it happens at a click of a button basically, and then you get additional storage. So if you look at, I want to quote this example of IRCTC. If you look at the Tatkal period, I think a lot of users log in and the systems become slow. So I think there are solutions. The solutions, I think what we see even for seasonal buying pattern in the retail industry also, what happens is basically if you study the seasonal patterns, the times at which these instances happen, make sure that you could enhance the memory, you could add additional storage capability, along with a lot of technical solutions, probably the legacy code being more monolithic, move towards microservices, make it as a service, as a feature, end-to-end driven and providing services as such. Make sure that you run multiple instances of it, and then you could satisfy the end users, saying that they have a great time and they don't often get 404s, or they won't often be blocked because of multiple users being. So this study, I think, of making systems or solutions intelligent and reacting in a predictive manner with a predictive outlook and a proactive fixing of errors or fixing of defects with the help of these monitoring systems, I think it makes life simpler. So I personally would say, I think Gartner has made a comment saying 40% of the solutions, predictive solutions by end of 2023 would employ AI and ML ops. So that's machine learning as such. So I would say, I think there is a drastic change from traditional to modern way, and we are heading, I think, in the right direction, heading with a lot of innovative solutions. And at the end, I think all the customers would get benefited. There will be a lot of trade and commerce, and it makes everyone's life simpler. I think this would address, I think, whatever we've lost in the COVID-19 pandemic time. I think we will regain all of those if we move to what Gartner is saying. If we try to achieve that goal, I think all businesses would be on track, and life would be much simpler, I guess.
Yeah. Thanks, Mandar. While we are still guessing how well we will navigate this COVID-19 hurricane in the sea, but you helped us really navigate very, very nicely onto our next speaker, because whatever you said was music for his ears, I'm sure, because he breathes and speaks only one thing, which is called AI Ops. And that's what came out towards the end of your speech. By the way, suddenly I realized as I was about to introduce Vivek that I have not yet introduced myself in the whole session. So I actually, so for everyone, I'm Prateek Banerjee, and by now I've got tired of seeing my name out there in the panel. So I lead the indirect business for BMC for India and South Asia. And I have my colleague Vivek also, who has joined in, Vivek Bogra, who is also based in India, and he leads our digital services and operations management portfolio. Where, of course, today we are only talking about predictive monitoring based on AI and ML, which in short we call AI Ops. And the IRCT example that you gave is something, again, which is a very favorite of his, in actually highlighting some of the innovative BMC approaches to monitor such peaks without creating events and event noises or alarms in the system. So Vivek, over to you. Mandar has really nicely navigated onto you. We have one question out there, which is, I think, for Mr. Devnath, which will come and address. If there are other questions, others can put in. So after Vivek's session, we'll come and take those questions. Over to you, Vivek. Vivek, mute.
I'm sorry. Thank you so much, Prateek, for nicely setting this up. And I'm really honored to be part of such a distinguished panel. My name is Vivek, and I had DSOM practice at BMC, which is nothing but a combination of IT service management and IT operations management in the industry parlance. I have had the honor of working with Government of India through Indian Engineering Services between 1999 and 2007, post which I did my MBA from ISB Hyderabad and came back to corporate world. So it's been early days with BMC, but this is something, the topic that we are talking about is something that is really very close to my heart. Mandar Saab, you set it up very well. And I also heard Nishant talking about a few things. I was a little late in joining because I was part of some other important meeting, which I could not have escaped. So my apologies about that. So coming back to the topic of today, Prateek and everyone else, what I believe is market forces were anyways leading all of the enterprises towards digitization. And the pandemic has only helped the cause. So the things which were already in motion, they have now got expedited with the unfortunate, but which has proved to be a blessing in disguise, pandemic, which is Corona. Now, when we talk about, in my role as DSOM business lead for BMC, I happen to meet people from different industries, from different sizes of the companies. And what I realize is, more often than not, all of them are on a digital journey already. Particularly when I talk of banks, when I talk of e-commerce companies, when I talk about insurance companies, all of them are moving towards digitalization, and they don't have a choice. So this is not a question of if, it's only a question of when for them, because they already are facing competition from new age players in their respective industries, be it new age banks, be it new age insurance companies, be it brokers like Policy Bazaars of the world. All of these have no choice but to move on to digital platforms and to be competing with the new age players. Now, when we talk about digitization, the biggest challenges that organizations, in my opinions, are facing are about the paradigm shift. So there was a time when a CIO organization was largely about keeping the lights on. Their responsibility was to just to make sure that all the systems are up and running, and that's where their responsibility stopped. But in the changing scenario, now CIO organization was previously a cost center. Now it is not a cost center anymore, right? They are a profit center, and they are a major source of revenue for all the lines of businesses. So their role has changed, the paradigm has shifted, and hence they have become much more strategic in nature, right? LOBs expect CIOs to be up and running and supporting them with the rollout of newer and newer products, new services, which they can sell to their customers, and in the process make money for the organization. But what is happening today is CIOs are already burdened with monitoring the infrastructure of today with the tools of yesterday, right? So if we have infrastructure which is in physical data center, which has got it has got some component of cloud, and we in the cloud also we have got multiple clouds. So what is happening is infrastructure is now much more heterogeneous and geographically dispersed, right? So you cannot be doing justice to today's infrastructure with legacy tools. And even if they have multiple tools, they have now got multiple screens to flip through to be able to get the health of their business service, right? So that the problem that they are facing is problem of tool sprawl, right? So they've got multiple tools, they have to flip through multiple screens, and then only they can apply their intelligence on top of that and find out as to what is going wrong. What this is leading to is there is a shadow IT coming up, because LOBs cannot afford for CIO to be available to them anymore. So they have started coming up with their own IT infrastructure, which is IT teams, which is leading to shadow IT problem. Now, if a CIO organization has a parallel shadow IT in place, it has got its own adverse impacts, because shadow IT is never part of the mainstream IT, and it leads to so many compliance issues, so many cost issues, and all of that. So CIO organization, in order to be relevant with the times, has to come up with tools and processes so that they not only do justice to their current existing role or the erstwhile role of keeping the lights on, but they should also be able to support the LOBs with the rollout of newer and newer products and services in a very, very agile fashion. And whatever inputs and data that they are getting from multiple tools, they should be able to derive intelligence out of this. And Mandar Sahab, I think, covered it very well. If you've got hundreds of stores and hundreds of systems from which you are getting millions of data points, it's humanly impossible to apply your mind on top of that and derive actionable intelligence out of that. So you need technologies like AI ops, machine learning, NLP, and data analytics, which basically what these technologies do is they try to imitate human's mind, right? So you can't have human mind doing that. So what you can do best is you can try to imitate all of that with the technology. So artificial intelligence and machine learning, as Gartner also said 4 to 5 years back, they said it in a very crisp and concise manner. It's nothing but application of artificial intelligence and machine learning algorithms onto the data that you get together for so many systems, right? So if you apply that algorithms on top of the data that you gathered, you are able to derive a lot of intelligence out of it. And this intelligence could be in terms of finding out the probable root causes of the problems that you're facing, or it could be in terms of finding out something proactively rather than reactively. You may also want to eliminate a lot of noise which is coming out of your system. You may also want to do dynamic baselining, which means if your IRCTC server, as Pratik also referred to, and also Mandar Sahab also referred to it, if your IRCTC server faces unusual load at a given point in time, your system should be able to tell that this is an expected behavior at this point of the time of the year, and hence there should not be any corresponding action. So all of these functions and features are required, and in fact they are must for the survival of the CIO organization, for them to not only be able to do the justice to the roles that they were previously playing, but also to stay relevant in the organization, right? So now we have new designations like chief data officer, chief data security officers, cloud architects, and all of that. So the whole paradigm has changed, and the CIO organization is now much more responsible for keeping an organization competent with their industry counterparts. In order to make my point, Kishore, are you comfortable running that poll that I had given to you before we proceed with my presentation? Are you comfortable with that? We
Yes,
can quickly
absolutely.
understand as to where do we stand with regards to the question that we have.
Sure.
So these questions are just to set up the presentation that I'm going to show in next 5-7 minutes, so that we can make more sense out of it. So I request all the attendees and panelists to respond if at all they're comfortable doing that.
So we see 18 responses. Maybe we can have a few more. We have 50 attendees.
No, I think, Pratik, that's all right. We have a fair idea. So what this basically shows is we have got multiple tools in everybody's environment, and that aligns with what I also said. It leads to the problem of tool sprawl. Can we go to the next question, Kishore?
Panelists cannot vote, but panelists are also IT users.
Yeah, Devanasab, you said it right. You said it right. Great.
Yeah, that's good. A lot of people are getting good view.
Yeah. Kishore, are we done, or do we have any more questions also?
No, these two. You can continue. I think we'll take 10 more minutes, right? We have to ask for more time from the attendees. We were thinking that we'll end at 4:30. So
All right.
please take
So
10 minutes.
I'll take quick 5 minutes to just give you a walkthrough of what exactly is AI Ops and how BMC help our esteemed customers with some of the use cases. Let me know when my screen is visible.
Yeah, it's up.
Yes, up. Yeah.
All right. So as we discussed, the current state is that the infrastructure, the IT estate, or the IT forest, as we say, is getting more and more complex and hybrid across environments. There's a lot of data which is coming in, which is very, very varied data in terms of volume and the variety. In fact, I was reading a report which says that whatever data was generated between 0 AD until 2010, the same amount of data has been generated between 2010 and 2021. So in the past 11 years, whatever data has been generated is equivalent to the data which was generated in last 2010 years. And I'm also told that 2025 onwards, this same very data would be generated per year. So we can very well assume the pace and the variety of the data that is getting generated through multiple systems. Now, for one to be able to make sense out of it, you need capabilities of tomorrow and not capabilities of yesterday. As I also discussed, having multiple tools in the environment also leads to the problem of tool sprawl. So you have to have multiple teams, you have to have a lot of budget for buying all those tools and managing and maintaining those tools. And also having multiple tools means you have a lot of events coming from duplicate systems. 90% of the alarms are superfluous in nature because they are getting generated, they are getting covered by multiple tools, right? Now, what is the negative impact of having today's state? One, the performance goes down because you don't have a clue as to which of these events are real and which of them are superfluous. The MTTR, which is mean time to resolution, also goes down because you don't have a clue and you have to just sift through a lot of data manually to be able to make sense out of it. And then customer experience also suffers because of that. And that is not a desirable state. So what we need basically is, we need there should be a capability with every enterprise which should be able to give a single pane of glass view, right? So you should be able to have a services level view rather than an individual component level view. Then there has to be a capability to be able to get the predictive alerts. You should not be waiting for an IT user to come back to you and tell you that this system has gone down and you need to take a corrective action. The system should be able to alert you well before the problem occurs. And then once the problem has occurred, you should be able to rapidly identify the root cause also. And once you identified the root cause, you should be able to automatically remediate it also, because in my understanding, L1, there are around 60% of the faults which are L1 and L2 in nature, and that can all be automated. They are either automatically taken care through the solutions which are supplied by likes of BMC, or you can write automation scripts and run the workflow rather than doing it in manual fashion. And then all of this leads to 90% of the event noise getting cancelled, because now you have the capability to be able to sift the real ones from the superfluous ones. Your MTTR also goes down by around 30 to 75% in most of the cases. And then 40 to 50% of issues get proactively alerted. So you take care of the issues well before they occur, right? So this is the data which is based on some of the surveys that we have done across our clients. Now, we already taken poll. So what do we do in AI Ops basically? So what we do is we allow our customers to prepare a dynamic map of their infrastructure. So we have got a tool which is called Discovery Tool. All of enterprises have a Discovery Tool in place, but our Discovery Tool goes across physical, virtual, cloud environments, and then prepares a dependency level view of the infrastructure, which means how is one server connected to other servers, how is a service connected to different configuration items within the data center. All of that becomes available to you through our CMDB solution. Now, when I say dynamic, what I basically mean is it is dynamic in nature. So if you have done a discovery on Sunday and if there has been a change in the infrastructure on Monday, you don't need to wait until next Sunday. On the Monday itself, in the scan, the incremental changes will start reflecting into the map of your infrastructure. Once you have that dynamically discovered, we give you the capability to be able to prepare a data lake out of it. So if you have a monitoring tool from BMC, or if you've got an application performance from somebody else, no matter which all tools do you have, we have the capability to integrate with all of them, either out of the box, or we have got AIOps based, we have got API based integration with all of them, which allows us to ingest data from multiple systems. And then once we have those with us, we can apply correlation algorithms on top of that. So these are not rule based correlation. This is algorithm based correlation, which means the system automatically keeps updating itself and has the capability to be able to containerize multiple kinds of events which are coming in, right? So the size of the container will tell you as to which one of these events are more important, and taking care of them would take care of most of your events and alarms. Now, once you have all of those events correlated, you may also want to do automatic root cause analysis of all of them, so that you know as to what are the probable root causes of the problem that you are facing. And then we have one visualization layer, which means our solution allow you to have view of all the capabilities that you have bought from BMC or even from your third-party players. So you may have feed coming in from IT service management layer, you may have it feed coming in from IT operations management layer, or it may be coming from a cloud cost solution, or it could be from any tool that you have in your premises. We can integrate that with BMC and give you a single consolidated dashboard. Now, this dashboard can be also configured. So there are multiple out of the box reports available with us, and you may also want to create your own. So all of that capability is available. So you may want to prepare different dashboards for different audiences, right from operations people to service management people to the CXOs of your organization. You can do all of that. And then you can also automate and run the scripts to take care of the faults which have occurred into the system. So all of these put together is something that is called as AI Ops applied. Now, in a typical enterprise, building the data lake itself is 50% of the effort in building an AI Ops solution. 30% of it comes from correlating from the capability to correlate and to be able to diagnose the faults. And then once you have diagnosed that, then there should be a capability which should be able to automatically resolve this also, which takes another 20% of the effort. At BMC, we do it in a very, very agile and fast manner. Just give me a second. So as I said, we can do the event noise detection, which is 1:7, which means out of every 8 events that are getting generated, 7 of them are duplicate in nature, so we can take care of them. And then we can also automate it with automatic remediation of the faults, which means we give you a services level view of the services health level view of your service, and then you can drill down to the probable root causes, and then you can also drill down to the individual nodes, which could be the probable problem makers, and run automated scripts to be able to eliminate those L1 and L2 level faults, right? So this is in a nutshell how we address the use cases of AIOps. Now, this is something which is very, very important that I wanted to discuss with you. This is nothing but chat ops, which means once you have identified the problem, there should be capability for you to be able to get network team, database team, server team, all of those teams on one platform, so that you can all interact and get to the resolution of the problem, right? So so this is something which is integrated with Microsoft Teams, but we also have the capability to integrate with other chatbots like Slack. So you have those war rooms, the virtual war rooms created on this platform, and all of you can attend onto one problem on this particular group, right? And you can cross-launch AIOps layer. As you can see, this is just a screenshot, so I can't do actually cross-launch from here, but you can see there is a hyperlink here which says investigate through AIOps. So by right-clicking on this, you can cross-launch AIOps, get to the AIOps screen, get to see the probable root cause, and do the right-click and run the automation script. And if there are no automation scripts, you can get your automation team to write scripts on top of that also. So this is something which really sets us apart from other point players which are there in the market. This is the services level health view that I was talking about. And when I talk about BMC, if I were to compare ourselves with the competition, so these are various tools at different layers that you need to have in place. For example, you need to have something to monitor your infrastructure. You also need to have something to get traces from your application performance monitoring tool. Then you also need something for log analytics. You also need something as actual AIOps layer, the layer that we're talking about. And then you should have some strategy to be able to automatically remediate that. And then you should have some tool to collaborate across teams also. The last chat ops thing that I spoke about. So how we do at BMC is, instead of having all these tools, if you see this screen, this is much clearer. And all of this is getting done through 4 to 5 BMC tools. Rather than having multiple of those tools, you can do it with only 4 to 5 tools. The only layer where we need a third party to help us is the application tracing layer, where we need a feed from AppDynamics, Dynatrace, or whichever APM tool that you have in your place. Which means that whatever AI ops function that I was talking about, you can derive that with only 3 to 4 products, with only 2 to 3 team members taking care of this, with minimal integrations across solutions, and much lower maintenance and OPEX costs, right? So this is how we as a major industry player are helping our clients. And to whomsoever I'm talking, be it a banking client or be it a insurance industry client, all of them get very excited about it. And there are a lot many of them whom we are already interacting with. And we are working with them collaboratively to understand as to what are their use cases, what is it that they are expecting from us in terms of AIOps, and we're trying to mitigate all of those problems. So this in nutshell gives you an overview of why BMC is one of the top players in the space of AIOps. And the reason for us being one of the top leaders is that we are one of the earliest players in this space, and we have got a dedicated R&D team which is based out of Bangalore, who is working on this in day in, day out, and they're coming up with newer and newer capabilities from AIOps perspective. So that brings me to the close of my presentation. Kishore, if you or anybody else has any questions, you can please ask me, and I'll be very happy to answer that. I'm sorry I had to rush through this because we had a time limitation, but I hope it was useful, and I was able to clearly communicate the message that I wanted to.
Yeah, we'll come back with actually more because obviously we had so many esteemed speakers, and I guess it's a rare opportunity to listen to all of them. In the meantime, there's one question which I guess is for Mr. Debnath, because it came in while he was speaking. In the model that Mr. Debnath was sharing, there's a question that is, how do you take care of the cybersecurity piece? And is there also a SLA which is aligned towards that from a cybersecurity perspective?
Okay, so when it comes,
no, I think it was for Mr. Debnath for the CRIS perspective. Because you're sharing the CRIS landscape. Yeah, Mr. Debnath, if you just.
I think the participant is trying to ask that if we have so many shadow ITs operating all over, how do we ensure the cybersecurity? Yes, it's a very pertinent question, and it has no easy answer. As I said, that the systems which we connect to in either through APIs or through web services, we ask for a independent audit report, mostly from STQC or any other certain paneled auditor. Then there are few places where the situation is so urgent that you can't wait for the audit, etc. Then we take it on a risk basis that yes, you can connect, but then the audit and the compliance has to be done ASAP. And to ensure that things are taken care of in such a large organization is that every zonal railway, we have 17 zones. Every zonal railway has a independent CISO as well. They do not report to me, or I have no direct connection with them, but they report to their own general managers, I mean, their head of the zone. And our responsibility from the central side is how well we can isolate those shadow ITs from our IT, affecting our IT. So we have all perimeter systems and at both ends, and we try that any issues or failures at their end do not influence us, and neither our failures or our systems influence them. But of course, when a central system has a problem, the peripheral systems definitely has a data issue, because many of them are using the central database for reporting or predicting the system or behavior for their own zonal use. Because if the train has started from some other remote zone and it is coming towards them, then they need the data of that zone to know how much time it will take or when it will arrive at their borders. So because the train operations and travel is still very localized, it is not very global in nature. Whereas the information being generated is required by everyone, from railway board to the booking source up to the consigner. So this way we try to keep the islands as much isolated as well as connected as possible. Of course, I will say that the tools which BMC and the likes are now coming up with the capabilities, this service management becomes much easier. But again, as I said, that our systems are of diverse generations. So despite using modern tools, it is not always possible to integrate the older generation systems with the newer generation. And the problem we have to carry. And sometimes they bother us also.
It's a, thanks for such a elaborate answer, and also highlighting and throwing up a wonderful technology challenge. Let's see if some of us can address some part of it. Thanks, Mr. Devnath. And I before we get into the survey question, I really want to thank the audience. Really, we crossed time, and audience presence has absolutely stayed constant, and that speaks volumes of the values that Mr. Devnath, Nishant, Mr. Nishant, and Mr. Mandar has added to this session, along with Vivek, because audience has is glued on to the session. Thanks so much, everyone who is attending it. Over to you, Kishore, for the poll question, and let's just figure out who are those lucky Amazon voucher winners.
So Pratik, I think that the report will get consolidated. I think
Yes,
we can close
yes.
the session and we will reach out to the winners individually, because there's a survey
Absolutely.
also which will appear. Yeah.
Correct. So after the survey, we'll conclude, and of course, once we tabulate it, we'll reach out to all the winners.
Yep.
Yeah. So Kishore, you can pull up the survey. You want to do it now?
No, I think survey also will take time. So I think we can close the session and we can reach out to the individual winners after the session, maybe in a day or two.
Okay, they
Yeah,
will respond back on the survey.
Right. The survey will
Okay.
appear once they close the webinar window.
Okay. I think to clarify everybody, because somebody has asked where is the survey link. So the answer to it is, as you leave the session, the survey link will appear once you click on the leave thing.
Right.
So survey link will appear, which you have to fill up and submit, and we'll get back to all the winners over email. Am I right, Kishore?
Yes, absolutely.
So thank you very much, and thanks to the wonderful panelists for staying through. And as audience is commenting, I think thanks for such an informative and a relevant session today. Thank you so much, and have a wonderful evening ahead.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thanks.
Thank you.